to, without any sense of reason, to run at a man wielding a shotgun, leaving him with no other alternative but to be placed in the position of killing another human being. Greg McMichael had probable cause through all that he saw, all that he heard, all that he knew, to believe reasonably that Ahmaud Arbery had committed a crime and that he was fleeing from it yet again. If the state hasn't removed every doubt, every single reasonable, logical doubt in your mind that Greg McMichael was attempting a citizen's arrest, attempting to simply detain Ahmaud Arbery for the police on February 23rd, then you have reached your verdict, ladies and gentlemen, on counts 2 through 9. If they can't strip you of any reason to doubt the evidence that's been presented to you on citizen's arrest, but if they have left you wanting to know more, if they have left you wanting to inquire into the next steps of these offenses, there are still more steps. One of those is causation. How any of the other acts in counts 2 through 9, other than the actual shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, could have been the direct cause of Ahmaud Arbery's death, or that it would have played a substantial and necessary part in causing the death. You would have to find that the goal of trying to detain Ahmaud Arbery for the police without using any excessive force, no fists, no discharge of the weapon, before that left turn attack on Travis, then the case is over yet again on counts 2 through 9. It would have to be not guilty because there would have been no causation between the counts that don't involve the actual discharge of that firearm. And then if you wanted to go one further step, you would have to ask yourself about Greg's role in all of this while riding in the back of the pickup truck. As a party to the crime, the state would have to prove to you that that Gregory McMichael intentionally helped in the commission of the shooting, or advised, encouraged, hired, counseled, or procured Travis McMichael to shoot Ahmaud Arbery as he was on the phone with 911 shouting the word "no." Without proof beyond a reasonable doubt of all of those pieces, all of those elements, the state simply has not met their case. When I sit down, I get no more chance to speak with you, and that's a tough thing for me. I have to know that the state gets the last word. So given the state's opening and some of their cross-examination of witnesses, despite how careful I know you all were with your notepads and pens, with your attention, with your focus, I have to raise a few more things to make sure you notice them, because the stakes are so incredibly high. Ms. Dunikoski told you in her initial closing argument. She was afraid that we'd persuade you of the things that we're sharing with you about the state's case. I'm afraid that she's going to cherry pick. Cherry picking is this: it's choosing and taking only the most beneficial items from all that's been provided to you and trying to turn that into a fact. Don't look over there at all the rest of the stuff. Just look at these beautiful cherries I've picked. Context determines meaning. Stop, or I'll blow your MFing head off. You heard that from opening statement, and you heard it all the way through the trial. Cross-examination. Versus the actual reality that I think I saw you all write down of what Greg McMichael told Parker Marcy and what the investigators testified about what it really meant and when it really was supposed to have happened. Greg McMichael said that horrible sentence, or something. Stop, he said to the investigator. I said to him, stop, or I'll blow your MFing head off, or something. You didn't hear or something. But most importantly, what we now know is that Greg McMichael thought in the panic and adrenaline and fear and of that horrible situation. He thought that's what he said at the very end of this encounter. Mr. Hogue cross-examined every witness who was with Greg McMichael when he shared that piece of information. The DA wants to make you think, by cherry picking, that Greg McMichael said that anywhere, anytime, over and over, all through, anywhere through the pathway. But what those witnesses, those investigators and officers told you is that Greg McMichael was talking about the final encounter. Officer Bryan was asked, when did you understand he was telling you he said that? And Officer Bryan said, he's talking about the final encounter on Holmes Road. Yes, that's my understanding. Parker Marcy was asked, when would that have occurred? Would that have occurred giving the context of the full statement, which because of the laws in this courtroom and around the state of Georgia, you cannot have all of the statement read to you, so there had to be context. And that gets a little dicey. And that's why you have to be extra careful when you're sharing that information with a jury. So Mr. Hogue cross-examined those officers to say, let's draw down on when that was supposed to have happened. He said it was supposed to have happened at the final confrontation. The same place where Greg's on the phone with 911? Yes. That's what he thought he said. So whatever he said on 911, Mr. Hogue asked the investigator, would that be the most accurate way of knowing what he really said? And that investigator, just like all of you, would say, of course. Whatever you heard, whatever the state presented in the 911 call, whatever you can listen to again, bears no resemblance to what Greg McMichael, after a stroke, in the panic and the fear and the sadness of those moments when he was interviewed, thought that he said on the 911 call. You're the decider of the facts. You're the ones that are going to have to make the decision about what's true and what's not true about this case. Jason Sheffield said the word red herring, so I went ahead and looked it up. I've always heard that phrase. And the definition is something that's intended to be misleading or distracting. So I'm going to tell you I've got one more concern before I sit down. And that is, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I'm concerned about it, so I want to share it with you since I can't come back up in case my suspicions are correct. I'm afraid of why the state kept introducing into evidence still shots of Greg McMichael with various people at the scene. I noted them in the beginning, thinking it wasn't any big deal. I take down a lot of notes, like you all do. And then I kept seeing a pattern. And again, Ms. Dunikoski, I could be completely wrong about this, but I'm concerned that Ms. Dunikoski is now digging so deep to make this case that she's going to suggest to you that Greg McMichael was on that scene manipulating testimony and evidence. It seems kind of wild when you think that the whole event is on video and that the people that came in with that video said it hadn't been altered or changed in any way, and that Officer Minshew is there in seconds on the scene, and we see everything that's happening on his body cam. In fact, it was Travis and Greg who waved him down. But there's photos of Greg comforting his son. There's a photo of Greg McMichael after 30 years in law enforcement having a conversation with Captain Tom Jump. There's evidence that the film, Officer Minshew said, Roddy's got this on the film, and Greg was able to say, Travis, it's captured on film. There's a screenshot of Diego talking to Greg, even though Officer Adam Jackson, who testified, said, I spoke to Diego Perez. He said, I got some camera footage, you want it? And we got the security camera footage from Diego Perez through Adam Jackson, unadulterated, and presented to you. So I just have to say, thank goodness that as awful as those recordings are to hear and see, they reflect the truth of what happened, who did what, and why. And there is no way to suggest that there was any manipulation of evidence or testimony at the scene.